You know, I can't tell you how much I enjoy finding beautiful spots to camp like this. And it gives me a feeling of comfort, security. I feel safe, I feel confident. I love places like this. However, not everybody feels that way. And I field a lot of comments from people that are concerned about many aspects of traveling and being in a campsite and the wilderness itself. So I thought I'd address some of those concerns. But there's a bit of a catch, because everybody's going to have a different opinion as to what's a genuine threat and what is really a false fear. And that's too much to tackle in a single video, so I'm going to start off easy and just give my thoughts on 3 concerns. Well, I'm a little parched, so let's address the first question. And that is water. Where do I get my water? And what are the dangers of water? And I think anybody that travels is clearly aware that there's a lot of waterborne diseases and problems in third world countries. Don't drink the water. Everybody says that. But what about just camping, the wilderness, and traveling? Where do you get the water? Well, let's talk about what you need water for in the first place. There's water for drinking, there's water for cooking, and there's water for showers. And it doesn't have to be the same source. As a matter of fact, it's probably more economical and realistic to separate your water. And that's what I do. Now, for drinking water when I'm traveling, I typically, and I'll just show you, this is my jug for drinking water. I carry that around with me, and when I'm not in the wilderness, when I'm going out for grocery shopping and all that, I typically go to a Walmart and I fill that up, because there's Walmarts everywhere. And I fill that up, it's less than $2, and that would be my drinking water for at least a week. So that's the best source of drinking water. There's also rest stops, gas stations. There's a lot of places. You just have to understand, like if you're on near an interstate and all that, there's always a source of water. But get the water ahead of time. You should be able to store drinking water for a week and get some more later on. Mountain fresh and ice cold. Now, some people see me drinking out of streams, and the first thing they say is giardia. You're going to get a waterborne illness from that. E. coli. There's so many nasties in streams in the wilderness. I understand that, but please understand, I just don't randomly dip my cup in a river and start chugging away at it. I'm very, very selective on the water that I drink from streams. And it's typically springs, mountain springs, high up in the mountains, that I would drink that water, and only if I was very comfortable. I've been doing this for decades. In reality, I probably even have a little bit of a resistance that some people don't have, because I drink it not all the time, but occasionally I do, and I've never got sick from it, but it doesn't mean you won't. So if you actually are in a situation where you have to drink the water from a stream, be very careful. One little thing, and I've never used it, but I carry it, is you might want to try, and this is called a life straw. It's kind of a little tube with a filter in it, and you just dip it in the water and suck it up, and yeah, there's your water if you really need it, especially in an emergency. I haven't tried it, but it's well recommended, so it's an option, especially if you're hiking around and you run out of water. Snow, you can boil snow, that usually is good as well. But shower water, I think it can be anything. Like, I have a separate jug, and yeah, I can take water from a clear stream and fill it up because I'm not going to drink it. And the third option, oh, there's a boat on the water right now. The third option for water is water which you're going to boil anyway for cooking. And again, it can be stream water, or it can just be merely potable water that you can get at campsites or rest stops and stuff like that. Now, there is one thing about water that certainly should be a genuine concern, because I don't think everybody realizes that the #1 cause of death in national parks in the US is drowning. Yes, it's these streams, rivers, lakes, seashores where the most fatalities are, and they can be prevented. So please be careful when you're camping around water. Critters, like this little guy here, which is a wasp. I get so many comments. Are you afraid of bears? Are you afraid of wasps? Are you afraid of spiders? Are you afraid of scorpions, snakes, coyotes, wolves? None of the above. And it's like this wasp here. Is he going to sting me? No. He's got other things on his mind. He's got to prepare for the winter time. He hasn't got time to sting me. So I'm just going to leave him there. He's my prop. But let's talk about bears. And I want to divide critters into 3 different categories. Ones that cause death, ones that cause pain, and those that are just a nuisance. So let's talk about death. Death is always a wonderful topic. And let's just do a few statistics. In North America, the number of people that are killed by bears every year is typically around 3. Now, I think 2018 was a little tougher year. I think there was, if I'm not mistaken, there was like 4 or 5. So the fact that there's 280 million people in the US alone that go to national parks every year, and a lot of those deaths from bears weren't even in national parks. And that's part of the issue there, is there's so few bears in North America now that it's a little more difficult to get killed by a bear than you really think. In Alaska is one of the worst places. And you'll see there are some fatalities happening in Alaska, people getting killed by bears. Canada, there's a good grizzly population. But most places in the US, it's black bears and in the smaller bears that are not as aggressive. And that's where, okay, all of a sudden it's not fear of death by bears, it's fear of them being a nuisance. And myself, I have, once I was camping in Algonquin Park in Ontario, and a bear came up in the middle of the night and had stuff all strung out on ropes. Man, just came in, reached up, grabbed it, off he went. Didn't get far with it, got it back, but be aware where you're camping, be aware of the risk of bears, don't leave food out, keep everything stored. If you're in a bear area, chances are there's a bear box to keep stuff in. And be assured, anytime you see a bear sign, the area is being monitored by park rangers. Warnings and closures are issued at each sighting. For me, it's the trails you need to be the most cautious. Be alert, be prepared, and always give bears lots of space. Forget the bells, the best deterrent for bears is bear spray. Snakes, I see rattlers every once in a while, but mostly the rattlers I see are on the highway because for some silly reason they tend to camouflage themselves on the highway. I guess it's warmer there, and yeah, they're dead rattlers most of the time. But if you are in rattlesnake area, be careful. Always wear hiking boots, the higher the better. These would not be good boots for rattlesnake. You want something a little higher. Wear jeans or tougher material, and you'll be protected a little bit more. And that's the same with scorpions as well. Arizona certainly has a healthy population of scorpions, and thousands of people get stung by them every year. That said, there's an easy way to reduce such a risk. I do encounter some scorpions, but because I typically travel when they're in hibernation or not very active, I rarely see them, and it's usually underneath a rock or something like that. So for me, it's not a concern. They would be a pain if you got stung, but chances are it's not going to be death. It's going to be something you're going to remember, and something you're going to be able to tell your grandchildren about. But it's not that big a concern. Well, not for snowbirds at least. But with all the other scary things in the desert, am I really going to relieve anybody's fears? Probably not. Although not many people are concerned with deer, you should be aware that they may have a few hitchhikers. Because anywhere there's deer or bighorn sheep, there could be ticks. And ticks can spread disease. Best to wear long-sleeve shirts and pants if hiking in a tick-infested area. There are two animals that you should be cautious with. One of them is the common mosquito, because mosquitoes can, especially in southern areas, can contain viruses. You know, West Nile virus, if you're traveling around the world, malaria. Be cautious with mosquitoes, use insect repellent, you should be fine. Coyotes may be a nuisance, but in reality they really don't want anything to do with you. The only time I've had coyotes approach was when I was with a dog, and coyotes do not like dogs. They do, however, like the tiny little dogs because they're tasty. You shouldn't be out in the woods with tiny little dogs anyway. Come on. But, no. Wolves, I think I've seen a wolf once in my lifetime. They are very seldom in areas where there are people. Really not a concern. But the number one animal I am concerned with is not a bear, is not a wolf, it's not a coyote, it's a dog. And I don't mean wild dogs, it's domestic dogs, people's pets. 15 people in the US are killed each year by dogs. And that doesn't count the number of dogs that maim, that injure, that traumatize. Yes, there are more dangers in the city for dogs, but in reality, there is still dangers in the wilderness because people bring dogs in the wilderness. People bring dogs in to defend themselves and leave them off leash. Now, I'm not saying that all dogs are nasty. On the contrary, most dogs are friendly and well trained, but you should still be cautious. Like when I opened my trailer door one morning and found this cute little pup, but he just wanted a pat. So let me suggest a few things that might help you if you've got a concern about critters in the wilderness. One of the most important things you should bring, you should be able to carry in a pocket, and that is insect repellent. The other one, and only if you really need it, is bear spray. And the third one is kept right in here, and it's knowledge. When you understand what the risks are of all the animals in the wilderness, you'll feel a lot better when you're camping in it. Although some viewers seem quite comfortable with the campsite, they may get a little nervous by leaving their safe place and venturing out into the woods. Are you ever worried about getting lost? That's a big one. And in reality, that's a scary concept, getting lost. I mean, you go out into the wilderness and you don't know it, and you become disoriented, and you freak out, and you start running, and then days later you starve to death and your bones are never found and all that scary stuff. Yeah, that would be horrible. Do I ever get lost? Yes, As a matter of fact, I do. I get lost a lot. But I don't get lost in the wilderness. I get lost on freeways all the time because there's no natural order to a freeway. It just defeats all logic. I'll be in a left lane and find out I need to be in the right lane and I can't get over there, and I just go with the flow. But in the wilderness, it's hard for me to get lost. And I think most people get lost is because they're not really paying attention to where they are. And they don't know the basic rules and the basic cues as to direction. Like, there are actually people that don't understand that when it's noon and the sun's over there, at least in this part of the world, that's south. I can tell you south instantly right now. There it is. But there's also other cues as to not only direction. And direction is great if you know what direction you were in the first place. Like, yeah, you can get these little things. Here's one with a thermometer, a compass, and a whistle. Handy to have. Just fits in your pocket. But a compass is useless if you don't know what direction you traveled from in the first place. So, really, people have to be aware when they're traveling in the woods at all times. If you're yapping to somebody or you've got your headphones on and you're just going blah, 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 just, prancing through the forest, not paying any attention, yeah, you're going to get lost and it's your own fault. Do a little research. As a matter of fact, one thing I could recommend, and there's many, this is a book by Tristan Gooley, The Lost Art of Reading Nature's Signs. There's lots of books like that out there that'll tell you how to read cues for direction. And there's so many other cues. Like, I typically travel in valleys and ravines. I know when I'm going uphill. I know, I familiarize myself with certain points of reference, like a mountain peak, a tree, along the way, there might be like a knurled tree or a rock, and I'll remember these things so that when I'm trying to get back, I can see these and I know, okay, this is where I was before. But not only that, don't wander aimlessly through the forest anyway if you're not familiar with it. Stay on the trails. Trails are typically marked, and look for other cues. Footprints. If you're on a trail with footprints, you know people have been there recently. Footprints not only tell you where people are going, but what other animals are present, and in some cases, tell you which direction not to go. But really, just pay attention is the best advice for not getting lost. And if you do get lost, do not panic. Just relax. Look around you, familiar. You're going to see something familiar, and you're going to find your way back. So I wouldn't be too concerned. Just be aware that a lot of people do get lost, but eventually they get found. Or better still, they find their way back themselves and learn from the experience. Now, you can't eliminate all risk, nor should you, as that would eliminate the sense of adventure, discovery, and challenge that you need in life. Although I can't quell everybody's concerns, I'm hopeful that I gave at least some viewers a path to address their own. In the meantime, don't worry, be camping. But if you're really concerned about scorpions, mosquitoes, bears, snakes, there is another option you can try. Camp out in the winter. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check out my other ones as well.